Good morning, everyone. The last day of January, tammikuun viimeinen päivä. The last day of the oak month, as we say it in Finnish, or oak moon. Before I start my speech, I would like you to just close your eyes and continue what Mikko just led you to, just putting your feet to the ground, receiving something, whatever comes, it's okay. We will have a little ritual before the speech starts. Hyvät haltijat, voimahaltijamme, suojahaltijamme, olkaa aina kanssamme. Terve pohjoinen, terve eteläinen, terve läntinen, terve itäinen. What you just experienced was a little short Finnish or Finno-Ugric shamanistic ritual. And if you understood Finnish, you knew what I was saying, but for those who didn't, I did call our guardian spirits, elves, haltijat, as we say it in Finnish. I called our ancestors, invited them to join us and be with us always. And I saluted all the directions, north, south, east and west. I also saluted the 3 layers of the world above us, and this world, and the spirits of this world, and the world below us. And I saluted the sun, the moon, and the tree of life, or the world tree. You may have experienced something familiar, something that you recognize. You may even had some kind of visual experiences. Or you might have just felt that, what is that crazy woman doing, drumming and singing, chanting next to me? This is too weird. And who is she? So when I started to prepare this speech, I was super excited. I was super honored that you asked me, because this is one of my kind of dearest subjects to do and speak about. But I didn't know where to start, because roots, it's such a huge, subject. It's everywhere, and you can start it from many different directions. First, I was thinking that, should I start it with sauna? There's lots of foreigners in CreativeMornings, and I have these beautiful sauna rituals that I do with women, and I think honestly, sauna is one of the most beautiful things that Finns can bring to the world, because it's so comfortable. We're so comfortable being naked with each others, and especially for women, that's not common at all in other parts of the world. I could have also started with our weird genetics, like Europeans can be divided basically to 2 groups. It's Europeans and Finns, because we are very different from any other European groups. I could have started also from the language, the root of our language. I have also studied Finnish language in university, and it's so enchanting and wonderful how during these years, even when I have studied the Finnish language, the theory of Finnish language have changed, and where do we come from? And if you see this wonderful illustration of the world tree of languages, you see that there's everything, like there's Hindi and English and Roman languages. And then there's this tiny little branch aside of the tree that has the Finno-Ugric languages. There's Suomi, Finnish, and Sami, and then, of course, Estonian and Hungarian, but all these other little languages from Siberia and in Russia, the tribes. So that also tells a little story of where we come from and where the Finnish-Ugric shamanistic tradition also comes from. The same roots that the Siberian tribes are still practicing, actually. I could have also started from our emotional or social emotional roots. CreativeMornings love hugging. Finns don't always so much. But then I started to think that I have to share something personal, something from myself too. But to be honest, it was also as difficult because I was born in Imatra, in little eastern Finland city next to Russian border, a couple of kilometers away from there, 75. This is how the star formations look at that exact moment when I was born. But my parents met in beginning of 70s there. They both had come somewhere else, but they met in this beautiful old castle that still stands there, and it has a meaningful history in our life because I wouldn't be existing probably without this castle because my parents met there for the first time, and that's why I exist. But actually my roots are not in Imatra because my mother and father both moved there only 50 years ago. So I don't feel, even though I feel I'm Karelian and I have grown there my whole life, I kind of don't have any real roots in Karelia, even though I speak Miesie language, the Eastern dialect language still. Then I was thinking that maybe I should start from my family tree, like how far can I go from my father's or mother's side? And the furthest I can go is my father's family tree. It goes back to 1600s. And it goes to a little town nowadays, or even village, called Rautalampi, that used to be a huge kind of area many hundred years ago. And I found out during my Metsien Kätkemä shootings a couple of years ago when I was doing the background research that there was something familiar in this city. I didn't know anything about it. And I started going my father's family tree, and then I realized that, my kind of paternal line from my father, they go all the way to this city, or the town. I didn't know when I was doing the shootings first that I have any relationship to this nature, but when I was starting to look where we go and visited the places in our scouting trips, I started feeling there's something familiar in here. And I found afterwards that actually that's where my roots come from my dad's side. But my dad wasn't born there either, so he was born actually in Vihti, so it wouldn't be so interesting story because it's new for me too that I'm from there, partly. My mother, on the other hand, is from Pohjois-Pohjanmaa, the northern Österbotnian, from Haapavesi. And in her case, we still have the house where she was born in our family, so I can actually go there and visit the place and touch all the tools that my grandparents have used, and even visit the room where my mother was delivered to this world in their bedroom. But I'm not from there either. It's like I have visited the place, so it's not so me, even though the strong, powerful women are said to come from that area in Finland. So I'm proud of those roots too. I live in Helsinki right now, and I really feel that I have grown my roots here because even though my parents were from everywhere from Finland, my grandparents, my parents, me and my sisters, and now my 3 children are all living in Helsinki. Actually, my grandparents and parents lived in 60s, just a couple of blocks away from the house where we live right now, in Kruununhaka. So I feel that I'm growing the roots here, even though they are maybe not so deep under the rocky surface of Helsinki. But definitely there's some roots coming to this city too. I could have also started from my DNA test that I did a couple of years ago, and the surprise what I found from there. So as you see the My genetic background is pretty typical Finn. I showed you the map with the Finnish genomes. There's actually like two groups, the Western Finnish and the Eastern Finnish, and it's based on the certain borders that went through Finland ages ago. So I'm mostly Finnish. I have a little bit of Viking blood, as I like to say, because it's the Scandinavian. And then I don't understand how the hell did I get 0.9 Papua New Guinean. Like somebody has traveled far at some time. That's another story. I have not digged into that yet. Like, how did that happen? And who is the one who gave me that gene or the portion of the DNA? But let's get back to the tree, the oak tree, which in Finnish mythology and Finnish history used to be the sacred tree and the tree of life. Tammi. They believe that this tree connected those 3 layers of worlds that I spoke about in my drumming. So the world below us belonged to the dead and wisdom. And these stories are ancient. The whole life tree or tree of life thing is going around the world. So many indigenous cultures have had that and still have that. So it's not like a only Finnish specific thing. But how did our ancestors actually know that the bones are the source of information? If you think about how much we can get information from the DNAs of thousands of years of old mummies at the moment. We know how they lived, what they ate, and usually even how they died. But our ancestors knew that the world below is the world of dead and wisdom and information. This world, they thought, that's for humans and animals and all the spirits around us. They were animistic, so they believed that everything in life is actually alive. There was nothing that was dead in this world. Even the stones had their spirits. And how did they know that, actually, that everything is alive? If you think about the modern science again, everything is in the constant movement if you go all the way to the atomic level. So there's protons and neurons and electrons, and there's nothing that stays still. And basically everything, even the stones that don't look like they're alive, they are alive. And people really thought that there's spirits living inside these elements. Some animals and their kind of ancient mothers were also very important when you went hunting. So you asked, in Finnish the term pyytää can mean ask or hunt, the same verb. And it comes from the fact that actually you were asking the ancestral mothers of these animals to give you something from the forest today. So for example, they chanted or sang for Hongatar, who was the mother of all the bears. Or they did same to Käreitar, which is the mother of all the foxes. Juonetar, who was the mother of all the deers. And then there was, of course, the world above us. The sky, ylinen in Finnish language. And that was the place of the gods. There were several gods. Ukko, Ylijumala. Ukko was the god of thunder and sky and weather, and he was the main god of our Finnish mythology. He had also a wife, Akka. Also, the bear was thought to come from the sky. So bear was in Finnish mythology very powerful god of the forest and king of the forest, and we believed it came from the Ursa Major or Ursa Minor, the Otava, the star formation that's only seen across the northern part of the world. Also, some important elements like fire and salt were believed to come from the skies. And actually, that's true. Salt, scientifically, consists of 2 elements. It's sodium and chloride, natrium and chloride in Finnish. And those elements came from stars that were dying millions and millions of years ago. So when Finnish people thought that salt was made in the sky by the Ukko Ylijumala, the thunder god, he hit the lightning and the salt came to the world, to the seas, they were actually right. But how did they know that? They didn't have science books, or they didn't have laboratories. They didn't have, anything to look too far to the sky. But there was so much information they already knew about how the world is actually consisting that it's amazing if you think about from modern science perspective. But if we think about us humans, we also have our roots not only in this planet. They go deeper and they go higher. They grow both directions. They go past the moon. They go past our solar system and our sun. They go all the way to the Milky Way, the galaxy we live in. And they go all the way to the beginning of the universe. Every human here has a teaspoon of stardust in us still. There's nothing in this world that didn't come from those dying stars. And that is the key to some information that we can't find from our DNA tests or family trees or cultural roots. That's some kind of information that those stars had and we still have today. And I believe there's ways to get that information. I will end with a little story from my roots. So 120 years ago, there was a young girl from the north called Reetta Ranta. And she went for an adventure. She wanted to start a new life with her brothers and sisters. She took a big boat, first from Finland to UK, and from UK all the way to America, to New York, to Ellis Island. From there, she traveled through railroads and horses and walking to a little tiny city on Washington, so on the other side of the coast, called Roslyn. That city was a big mining city, or big and big. There was like maybe a couple of thousand people living there. But anyway, that time, many Finns went to US to search for a new life. I think many grandparents here have done the same. Somehow, in that village, he met another Finn who was in a totally different part of Finland, from Häme, Tavastia, called Juho Tamminen. And Juho and Emilia fell in love, or I hope they fell in love. I don't, of course, know. Oh, by the way, this is a bar that still exists in that town. It's the bar where all the miners, it was super rough work. And there was 23 nationalities working in that city, and also 23 bars or saloons. So you can imagine how hard it is to be in the deep mines the whole day in black, and you know that you can die any moment. And after that, you just want to have a beer and relax. So Juho maybe had a beer and relaxed, and maybe met Emilia. And yeah, I hope that they fell in love with each other. But from the documents, I can see that they got married January 1904. So this month, 1904. 5 months later, they got a baby, my grandmother, Fanny Matilda. I think it wasn't kind of anything special that time that you first got pregnant and then got married when you realized. And I hope they were in love, but at least Juho carried his responsibility like a proper Finnish man would do. But little did I know, when I was an angry teenager in Imatra, kicking my boots to the stupid ground of that little tiny town that I wanted to get rid of very much. And I was watching a TV series called Northern Exposure, Villi Pohjola. I don't know how many remember this TV series, but it was my favorite one. I loved it so much. I loved Maggie, the short-haired girl who was a pilot, and she was like a strong, independent woman. I also fell in love with Joel Fleischman, who was the New York-based Jewish doctor who got stuck in this little village of Roslyn, or Sisley, in that TV series. It was actually in Alaska, but it was shot in the Washington Roslyn. Little did I know that my grandmother was born in that same little village. So my favorite TV series from my teenage years had secrets that I had to reveal. I had to know more, like what's happening. So last spring, I had quite like personal, difficult moment, and I decided to travel to my grandmother's birthplace, to those roots. I visited the saloon, the Prick, the picture you saw earlier. It's the same actually saloon that's in the TV series. It still has the same bar. It still has the same like spitting, I don't know how you call it, like where those miners, when they had beer and they had to cough the dirt out of their lungs, they spit to the water kind of pipe that's in front of the bar. It's still running there. So it's over 100 years bar that's still running the same system. It was a very meaningful trip to me. I also went to the library and did so much information about the time when my grandmother was born. I learned a lot about the life of those young people. You know, when you think about your grandparents, you always think about them as like old people. And suddenly you realize that they were like 20 years old, young people going to the other side of the world, starting something new and living in very rough conditions too. And you start to respect them even more. The same trip took me to a little valley. I went camping for 5 days to kind of a beautiful nature behind the Cascade Mountains, on the other side where my grandmother was born. And those 5 days I spent with the tiny group of people. We were singing, we were chanting, we were drumming, we were reading and writing poetry. And we were opening ourselves to information that cannot be read from books or cannot be learned from anyone else than from inside. And this is maybe the biggest secret I have learned during my life when I have digged into my own roots, and I want to share it with you. It's a little poem, but it actually has the whole secret in it. Children of the moon, listen. What does it take to know? Sometimes it only takes a teaspoon of stardust and 5 liters of hot blood circulated through your open, hungry heart to know. Your body knows, you know. It will tell you. Surrender and let the knowledge in through the beauty of nature. The first sunbeams and the morning dew on a tiny leaf, from which you can see the reflection of the whole universe. Nature knows, you know. It will tell you. Look up to the night sky, look up to the moon. See the constellations of stars from beyond time. Hear the silent noise of pulsating universe. The sky knows, you know. It will tell you. Let the sacred knowledge into your heart by surrendering to love. Feel the universal heartbeat in you that makes all life possible. Love knows, you know. It will tell you. Let your soul dance in the music of the wind. Lift your feet up and let the drum beat carry you up to the place where your ancestors once sang together. They know, you know. They will tell you. Close your eyes. Dream. Let the dream world take you to the other side. Your dreams know, you know. They will tell you. Laugh, play, imagine. Remember how it was to be a child when everything was possible with an innocent and unrestricted mind. How you could fly, wrestle a bear, and wake up being whoever you wanted to be. You know. Just listen, child of the moon. you know. Kiitos.
Yeah. What she said.